Welcome back, fourth graders. Miss Kirkness here, and I'm going to be sharing with you chapter 20 of the City of Ember. And this chapter is extra special because it is the last chapter of the book, and I'm very excited to be here with you to read that with you. So, chapter 20, The Last Message. Friday. They tell us we leave tonight. I knew it would be soon. The training has been over for nearly a month now, but still, it feels sudden. It feels like a shock. Why did I agree to do this? I'm an old woman, too tired to take up a new life. I wish now that I had said no when they asked me. I have put everything I can into my one suitcase. Clothes, shoes, a good wind-up clock, some soap, an extra pair of glasses. Bring no books, they said, and no photographs. We have been told to say nothing ever again about the world we come from. But I'm going to take this notebook anyhow. I'm determined to write down what happens. Someday, someone may need to know. Saturday. I went to the train station yesterday evening as they told me to, and I got on the train. They told me to take. It took us through Spring Valley, and I gazed out the window at the fields and houses of the place I was saying goodbye to. My home and my family's home for generations. I rode for 2 hours until the train reached the station in the hills. When I arrived, they met me, 3 men in suits, and drove me to a large building, where they led me down a corridor and into a big room full of other people, all with suitcases, most with gray or white hair. Here, we have been waiting now for more than an hour. They have spent years and years making this plan. It is supposed to ensure that no matter what happens, people won't disappear from the earth. Some say that will never happen anyhow. I am not so sure. Disaster seems very close. Everything will be all right, they tell us, but only a few people believe them. Why? If it's going to be all right, do we see it getting worse every day? And of course, this plan is proof that they think the world is doomed. All the best scientists and engineers have been pulled in to work on it. Extraordinary efforts have been made, efforts that would have been done more good elsewhere. I think it's the wrong answer, but they asked me if I would go. I suppose because I've spent my life on a farm and I know about growing food. In spite of my doubts, I said yes. I am not sure why. There are 100 of us, 50 men and 50 women. We are all at least 60 years old. There will be 100 babies too. 2 babies for each pair of parents. I don't know yet which one of these gentlemen I'll be matched with. We are all strangers to one another. They planned it that way. They said there would be fewer memories between us. They want us to forget everything about the lives that we've led and the places we've lived. The babies must grow up with no knowledge of a world outside, so that they feel no sorrow for what they have lost. I hear some noises across the room. I think it's the babies arriving. Yes, here they come, each being carried by one of those gray-suited men. So many of them, so small, little scrunched-up faces, tiny fists waving. I must stop for now. They're going to pass them out. Later, we're traveling again, on a bus this time. It is night, I think, though it's hard to be sure because they have us boarded up. They have boarded up the windows of the bus from the outside. They don't want us to know where we're going. I have a baby in my lap, a girl. She has a bright pink face and no hair at all. Stanley, who sits next to me, holds a baby boy with brown skin and a few tufts of black hair. Stanley and I are the keepers of these children. Our task is to raise them in this new place we're going to. By the time they are 20 or so, we'll be gone. They'll be on their own, making a new world. Stanley and I have named these children Star and Forest. Sunday. The buses have stopped, but they have not allowed us to get out yet. I can hear crickets singing and the smell of grass, so we must be in the country, and it must be night. I am very tired. What kind of a place can this be, safe from earthly catastrophes? All I can guess is that it must be underground. The thought fills me with dread. I try to sleep a little now. Later. There was no chance to sleep. They called us off the buses and we stepped out into the landscape of rolling hills. In full moonlight. That's the way we'll be going in, they told us, pointing to a dark opening in the hill we stood on. Form a line, please. We did so. It was very quiet except for the squalling of a few of the babies. If the others were like me, they were saying goodbye to the world. I reached down to touch the grass and breathed deeply to smell the earth. My eyes swept over the silver hills, and I thought of the animals prowling softly in the shadows or sleeping in their burrows, and the birds standing beneath the leaves of the trees with their heads tucked under their wings. Last, I raised my eyes to the moon, which smiled down on us from a long, cold distance away. The moon will still be here when they come out, I thought. The moon in the hills, at least. The opening led us into a winding passage that ran steeply downhill for perhaps a mile. It was hard going for me. My legs are not strong anymore. We moved more slowly. The last part was the worst, a rocky slope where it was easy to miss your footings and slip. This led down to a pool. By the shore of the pool, our group of aged pioneers gathered. Motorboats were waiting here for us, equipped with lanterns. When it's time for people to leave this place, is this the way they will come? I asked. Our pilot, who had a kind face, he said yes. But how will they know there's a way out if no one tells them? I said. How will they know what to do? They're going to have instructions, said the pilot. They won't be able to get at the instructions until the time is right. But when they need them, the instructions will be here. And what if they don't find them? What if they never come out again? I think they will. People find a way through just about anything. I think they will. That was all he would say. I'm writing these notes while our pilot loads the boat. I hope he doesn't notice. It ends there, said Lena, looking up. He must have noticed, said Dune. Or she was afraid he would, so she decided to hide it instead of taking it with her. She must have hoped that someone would find it, just as we did, he pondered. But we might not have if it hadn't been for Poppy. No, and we wouldn't have known that we came from here. The fiery circle had moved up to the sky now, and the air was so warm that they took off their coats. Absently, Dune dug his fingers into the ground, which was soft and crumbly. But what was the disaster that happened in this place, he said. It doesn't look ruined to me. It must have happened a long, long time ago, said Lena. I wonder if people still live here. They sat looking out over the hills, thinking of the woman who had written in the notebook. What had her city been like, Lena wondered. Like Ember in some way, she imagined. A city with trouble where people argued over solutions, a dying city. But it was hard to picture a city like Ember here in this bright, beautiful place. How could anyone have allowed such a place to be harmed? What do we do now? Asked Lena. She wrapped the notebook in its covering again and set it aside. We can't go back up the river and tell them all to come here. No, we could never make the boat go against the current. Are we here alone, then, forever? Maybe there's another way in. Some way that lets you walk down to Ember. Or maybe there's another river that runs the other way. We have candles now. We could cross the unknown regions if we found a way to get there. This was the only plan they could come up with. So all day long they searched for another way in. Under the brow of the hill they found a hole where a stream wandered into the dark. The water was good to drink, but the hole was far too small for them to fit through. There were gullies full of shrubs, and Lena and Dune crawled among the leaves and prickly branches but found no openings. Bugs buzzed around their ankles and past their eyes. Brown earth stained their hands and pebbles got into their shoes. Their thick, dark, shabby clothes got all full of prickly things, and since they were much too hot anyhow, they took most of them off. They had never felt such a warmth against their skin and such soft air. When the bright circle was at the top of the sky, they sat for a while in the shade of one of the tall plants on the side of the hill, in a place where the thick brush gave way to a clearing. Poppy went to sleep, but Lena and Dune sat looking out over the land. Green was everywhere, in different shades, like a huge, brilliant, gorgeous version of the overlapping carpets back in the rooms of Ember. Far away, Lena saw a narrow gray line curving like a pencil stroke across a sweep of green. She pointed this out to Dune, and both of them squinted hard at it. But it was too far away to see clearly. Could it be a road? Said Lena. It could, said Dune. Maybe there are people here after all. I hope so, said Dune. There's so much I want to know. They were still gazing at the far-off bit of gray when they heard something moving in the brush nearby. Leaves rustled. There was a scraping, shuffling sound. They stiffened and held their breath. The shuffling paused, then started up again. Was it a person? Should they call out? But before they could decide what to do, a creature stepped into the clearing. It was about the same size as Poppy, only lower to the ground, because it walked on 4 legs instead of 2. Its fur was a deep rust red. Its face was a long triangle. Its ears stood up in points, and its black eyes shone. It trotted forward a few steps, absorbed in his own business. Behind it floated a thick, soft-looking tail. All at once, it saw them and stopped. Lena and Dune stayed absolutely still. So did the creature. Then it took a step toward them, paused, tilted its head a little as if to get a better look, and took another step. They could see the sheen of its fur and the glint of light in its eyes. For a moment they stayed like this, frozen, staring at one another. Then, unhurriedly, the creature moved away. It pushed its nose among the leaves on the ground, wandering back toward the bushes, and when it raised its head again, they saw that it was holding something in its white teeth, something round and purplish. With a last glance at them, it leapt toward the bushes, its tail sailing, and disappeared. Lena let out her breath and turned to look at Dune, whose mouth was open in astonishment. His voice shaky, he said, "That was the most wonderful thing I have ever seen. Ever in my whole life." "Yes." "And it saw us," Dune said, and Lena nodded. They both felt it. They had been seen. The creature was utterly strange, not like anything they had ever known, and yet, when it looked at them, some kind of recognition passed between them. "I know now," said Dune. "This is the world we belong in." All right, I'm going to pause here for the end of part 1. Please continue watching chapter 20 of part 2 next.